was a brain injury, correct?
There was trauma to the brain, correct?
Trauma to the brain. Is it a fair characterization that Dr. Stonebridge is sort of the brains of the brain area of autopsy? Is that fair?
I'm going to sustain the objection. Let's move on.
So, with regard to Dr. Stonebridge, would you agree that she's really uniquely qualified in some ways? Or how would you describe her qualifications, Dr. Stonebridge?
Sustained.
With regard to Dr. Stonebridge, what did she do?
I'm going to see you at sidebar on this, please.
May I, Your Honor?
Yes.
Thank you. Dr. Scorti-Bello, are you aware of an attorney name, or excuse me, a doctor named Azik Wolf?
No, I'm not.
Now I'd like to move on to another category. Based on the information that was presented to you as part of your examination and analysis, is it correct that you presume that because Mr. O'Keefe's body was found in the snow and his body temperature was 80 degrees, that he died from hypothermia as one of the causes?
I reached that conclusion after performing the autopsy and after seeing some findings that were consistent with hypothermia, and then combined with the information that was provided to me about Mr. O'Keefe's body being found in the snow, I came to the conclusion that was one of the things that contributed.
Did you consider whether there may have been other reasons as to why his body reached that temperature of 80 degrees? Sort of applying the scientific method and seeing if there were other reasons?
Other than being out in the snow? No, I do not.
Do you know whether there are other alternative reasons how his body could reach the temperature of 80 degrees?
People can become hypothermic for other reasons, such as sepsis. But in this particular case, I didn't have any reason to believe that that was part of the circumstances.
You're familiar with the medical phrase differential diagnosis, correct?
Yes.
And a differential diagnosis is a term that's used by doctors to pursue other potential causes of a medical injury. Is that a fair general statement?
Yes.
So, for example, if somebody is having difficulty breathing, a doctor may say, I think it's the heart is their primary hypothesis, but they may want to differentially diagnose this and look at the lungs. Is that an example of a differential diagnosis let's look at the lungs to see if that may be the problem? Is that a good, fair example?
In the example you're giving, yes.
So applying that concept, and do you believe the concept of, applying that concept to this situation, did you perform a differential diagnosis as to the cause of the death and question whether there was hypothermia as any cause of the death of the decedent? Did you make that analysis?
I looked at the anatomic findings that I had at the time of autopsy, the information that was provided to me based on the circumstances and where the body was found, and I came to the conclusion that there were hypothermic changes in Mr. O'Keefe's body.
So you just used the phrase hypothermic changes. Did I hear that correctly?
Yes.
Can there be hypothermic changes without a cause of death being hypothermia?
Yes, of course.
So you can have signs in the body of hypothermia, but you can also conclude that a cause of death is not from hypothermia, correct?
If the person is deceased and I am examining the body and there are multiple things that I believe contribute to the death, then I tend to include all of them. Meaning that if this was a drug intoxication and the body also showed signs of hypothermia, I would include both of them on the death certificate, because there is no scientific way of teasing out whether it was just one or the other or both. In this particular case, I had two processes that were going on. One was the head trauma, and the other one were these hypothermic changes. I put all that together, and again, included or took into account the investigative information of where the body was found, what the temperature was when the body was found, whether the person was still alive or not, and I came to the conclusion that the cause of death was blunt impact injuries of head, and I included the hypothermia because I saw during the autopsy that there were changes consistent with hypothermia.
So I want to break that down a little bit, if I could, with you. So you testified on direct, and I think you alluded to it here, that the primary cause of death, use that phraseology on direct, was blunt force injury. Is that correct?
Blunt impact injuries to the head, yes.
Blunt impact injuries to the head, and that's the primary cause, right?
Correct.
And then there's, and I'm not clear on what you refer to on direct as a secondary cause of death of hypothermia, but you've used a little different phrase in some of your answers, and I want to make sure I got it right. Hypothermic considerations. Can you repeat what it was?
I said hypothermic changes.
Hypothermic changes, and we agree that you can have hypothermic changes without a conclusion of hypothermia, correct?
No, hypothermic changes are what I'm referring to are actual things that I can see in the organs that are consistent with hypothermia. They're anatomic findings. They're things I can see with my eyes.
So you can, I'm sorry, did you finish?
And those changes suggest and are consistent with someone being hypothermic.
As you sit here now, with regard to, you used the phraseology consistent with hypothermia, signs of hypothermia, that's what I want to pursue just a little bit with regard to further information. We got started on this by asking whether you used the concept of differential diagnosis and hypotheses to determine the cause and manner of death. And you said in one of your answers that you relied upon law enforcement information, correct? Is that
Yes.
part of it? It was, you brought that up. You're the one who said you relied upon that, correct?
Yes.
And you've brought that up on your direct testimony and earlier in the cross. Is that correct, that you relied upon the investigation of law enforcement? So,
Sustained.
so now what I'd like to do is to ask you whether, using the concepts of differential diagnosis, scientific method, did you consider whether Mr. O'Keefe could have died somewhere other than where the body was found and been moved and placed in the snow? Did you consider that?
Objection.
Sustained.
May we approach, Your Honor?
Move along with this. We can approach in a bit.
Thank you. What, if any, alternative diagnoses did you apply to Mr. O'Keefe?
I don't understand your question.
What alternative scenarios did you look at, if any, for the cause or manner of death of Mr. O'Keefe?
I'll allow that question. What, if any?
At the time of the autopsy, I documented injuries and signs of hypothermia. I was provided with a set of circumstances, and at the end of the investigation, or at the end of my timeline, I concluded on the cause, but I did not conclude, or I did not determine a manner. The manner would be the circumstances you are speaking about, whether I considered other causes or circumstances. That's not how it works. I don't come up with hypothetical scenarios on how those injuries occur. I try to state the injuries, describe the injuries, state the cause of death and why that person died. And then I use all kinds of other investigative information that is provided to me to determine if I have enough to make a determination on the manner.
Did anyone provide to you any alternatives as to the finding of the body of Mr. O'Keefe in the snow?
Personally, to me, no.
Did you ask for any alternatives to the nature and location of the injury or death of Mr. O'Keefe?
I asked for all the information that was available.
Understood, but my question is, did you ask for any alternatives to the information that was provided to you as regards the location of the injuries? Did anyone provide you any alternatives to where the injuries could have occurred?
No.
So,
I'm going to let the answer stand. So the answer is no, so there's no evidence of that. So next question.
so you talked about the information you had at the time. What time is that?
The information at the time was a preliminary police report and verbal communications regarding the circumstances of how Mr. O'Keefe's body was found.
And when I asked about the time, I'm not calendar time. Was this January, February, March, April of 2022?
The preliminary police report was on the day of the autopsy, and then information, I don't remember exactly how long, but in the weeks following, information was, coming in.
Do you have the ability to amend a death certificate?
Yes, I do.
And you can amend a certificate if you obtain further information with regard to the circumstances surrounding the death. Is that correct?
That's correct.
In your previous answers, you were talking about the information you had at the time. And I'm concluding that the latest that would be is April of 2022. Is that correct?
Correct.
Have you obtained or been provided with further information, in other words, information after April of 2022 regarding the cause or manner of death?
What do you mean, have I been provided? Has someone physically provided me with a report on different circumstances?
Well, what I'm just talking about is any other information that you have received or considered in terms of the analysis with regard to the cause or manner of death.
Received in what way?
Here's what I'll do. I'll be a little more specific. What I want to do is to get at the head injury of the decedent, okay? Is it fair to say that the head injury, you called it a traumatic, state what you phrased that as, because I want to use your phraseology.
Blunt impact injuries of the head.
So blunt impact injuries of the head. Is it fair to say that that was a very severe injury?
It was a severe injury, correct.
And would Mr. O'Keefe had been rendered unconscious nearly instantaneously with death following shortly thereafter.
It's very possible, yes.
Is it more than possible? Is it probable that that's what would have occurred?
I can't tell you how quickly he would have been rendered unconscious, but at some point after that injury, yes, he would have been rendered unconscious.
Is it possible he could have been rendered unconscious immediately?
So she's answered it this way. I think you need another person for that. Let's move on from that, Mr. Lessie.
You made your own determination of the cause of death, correct?
Yes, that's my job.
Understood. And what I want to do is to pursue the basis of your determination. So you used the phrase brain impact injury,
Blunt impact.
a blunt impact injury. Have I got that correct?
Blunt impact injuries of head, yes.
Of head, right. And that's your conclusion, correct?
Yes.
Based upon your conclusion, did you make any determination as to whether the decedent would be able to carry out any purposeful movement after that injury?
Define purposeful movement.
Sure. I'm talking about the ability to perhaps manipulate their hands.
I don't know.
Did you make any determination as to whether they would be able to engage in any cognitive functions, meaning processing things and making decisions?
I did not make that determination, no.
Did you observe any pattern to the injuries to the head of the decedent?
A pattern? I observed that there were injuries to the back of the head as well as other internal injuries to the base of the skull, as well as the brain.
Your Honor, if we could please publish, I'm just going to check to make sure they're in. If we could, Your Honor, publish 160 that is in evidence. But before we do, Mr. Wolf, I would like to approach Your Honor and let you know in case there's anything further
Okay.
that needs to be done. Thank you.
Did you show it to Mr. Brown?
It's already been agreed to as in evidence. and
Okay.
it is in evidence.
Oh, it's in evidence?
Yeah, I just wanted to make sure if there was any statements that Your Honor wanted to make, and if not.
So why don't you come over here because, why don't you come over to the side?
May I, Your Honor?
Yes.
Thank you. With Your Honor's permission, I would like to publish Exhibit 160.
Yes.
Thank you. Dr. Scordi-Bello, if you could please draw your attention to what is depicted on both screens. Pick whatever screen is most convenient for you. And what I want to do is to go over what is depicted there, and I'd like to start with just some basics. What is that white rectangle that is on the photograph?
This?
Yes.
That's a ruler.
And what's the purpose of the ruler?
To show a scale. When I measure the injury, I use the ruler to document that.
And if you could please draw your further attention to what I will refer to, and you use your own term, but just to start it, the horizontal line that is appears to be a laceration. You know what I'm referring to?
This, yes, this is a laceration.
Right, so it's fair to say that that's a laceration.
Correct.
And just so we get all that's depicted on this, you referred to earlier up above that, the red area. Is that an abrasion?
Yes.
And do you also denote to the left almost like a J-type item going vertically up? Yes, and going up. Do you see that?
Yeah, that I did not note that specifically. I just noted the whole injury as part of the abrasion.
That's my point. So you didn't make a separate note of what appears to be a J, and it might be easier to see it in the screen over there. It's your conclusion, but is it easier to see there?
Yeah, I can see it.
Yeah, and so you didn't make a separate note as to what that was in your report, correct?
No, I did not.
Do you consider that an abrasion or something else?
I believe that's still an abrasion.
Do you conclude that that J is different in any manner from the abrasion that you've noted above the laceration?
I believe it could be part of the whole abrasion, or it could be something different.
Fair enough. Would a fall backwards on a flat frozen ground produce a circular and not a linear abrasion as depicted here on the back of an injured person's head?
Can you repeat the question?
Sure. Assume a fall backwards on a flat frozen ground. Would such a fall and impact present that type of pattern, or would it present a circular pattern, perhaps with something like a starfish in the middle?
I'll allow that. Can you answer that?
I can say that a fall backwards could very well produce that injury.
My question is more specific, and that is a fall backwards where the person impacts the back of their head on flat, frozen ground. Would you expect that type of a laceration from that type of a fall? Not just a general fall backwards, but specifically a fall backwards where the back of the head hits flat, frozen ground. Would you expect that?
I could, yes.
And under what circumstances could a laceration like that and an abrasion, all of it together, what circumstances could cause that type from a fall backwards on flat frozen ground?
Well, the laceration is due to the blunt impact, and so is the abrasion. The abrasion is friction. So depending on the type of surface, you mentioned flat frozen ground, it's quite possible to have an injury as the one depicted. There's nothing inconsistent with this injury and a fall on someone's, on the back of the head with a blunt surface.
Is there, are you familiar with the phrase pattern recognition in medicine?
Yes,
And isn't pattern recognition something that requires training with regard to being able to recognize certain patterns and determining what could be causing that pattern?
yes,
And just merely recognizing whether there is a pattern takes certain specialty training, etc.?
correct.
And isn't pattern recognition a principle that you apply in the medical examiner's office?
Yeah, we do.
And so example of pattern recognition could be a knife wound, correct?
Yes,
Could be a gunshot.
correct.
And there's certain patterns that you see on a decedent that can be consistent with those types of causes of injury, correct?
Correct.
Assuming a fall backwards onto frozen ground and there being on a lawn with grass, would you expect to see any grass at all in the injury site?
It's possible to have grass.
Is it possible to have well, are you familiar with the height and weight of the decedent generally? And if you need to look at your notes, please do so.
Yes. Mr. O'Keefe was approximately 6'1" and 216 pounds.
So, assuming a fall backwards and an impact to head on, a ground with grass, a person who's 6'1", there is going to be significant acceleration forces that occur as they're going backwards. Is that correct?
That's fair to say, yes.
And therefore, the more acceleration forces, usually there's a correlation with the force of the impact.
Correct.
And in terms of force of impact and assuming grass on the ground, would you, do you believe it's more probable than not that one would then see some grass on the head?
Sustained is that form.
Given what you testified regarding the height of Mr. O'Keefe, and assuming what I just gave to you as a fall backwards and acceleration and forces, would you expect to see anything else on the back of his head?
You have to be more specific than that.
Right. I thank you. So, would you expect to see? Is it possible, if that was the manner of the fall, that there should be grass on the head? Is that possible?
Sustained.
Did you consider at all in your evaluation well, let me back up. Do you see any evidence of grass in this depiction?
No, I do not.
Did you recall ever seeing any evidence of grass when you were performing the autopsy?
I did not see evidence of grass.
Did you consider at all in performing your autopsy, whether or not grass should be present given what was reported to you by law enforcement?
Sustained.
Did you make any considerations at all regarding grass in regard to your autopsy report?
I did not see any grass. No, I did not make any determinations.
And was grass at all even a consideration in your analysis?
I had very limited information as to the exact nature of the surface at the time of autopsy.
So the answer is no to that
No.
question. Thank you. Did you have any information regarding the circumstances that you said you look at in trying to determine manner of death as to whether there were any stones or rocks around the scene?
That I did not have any information.
So meaning you didn't have any information, you saw no information that there were any stones or rocks by the scene, is that correct?
Sustained in that form.
What, if any, consideration did you make in your assessment of cause and manner of death with regard to stones or rocks?
I did not make any.
With regard to any other potential causes other than ground, did you consider any other possibilities that could cause the type of injuries that are depicted on the screen?
There's a number of possibilities that could cause the injury.
My question is, did you consider, not whether there are, but whether you considered them at the time you were performing the autopsy?
I'm always considering at the time of autopsy what could have caused a certain injury.
Did you put in your notes or your autopsy report any of those considerations? Are they documented?
No.
Now, in terms of differential diagnosis that we talked about, did you determine whether there were any other possible explanations for the injuries to the decedent other than what law enforcement presented to you?
I'll allow that.
Internally, I consider all kinds of other explanations. I have to look at the findings and the possible ways that those injuries could have been sustained and decide whether I have enough information and whether I am satisfied with the information that I have in order to conclude or determine a manner.
Did you make any notes at all about the considerations you were just speaking about, other considerations? Any notes whatsoever in any document in your autopsy report?
Not in my autopsy report, no.
Did you make any other notes of those considerations in any document that you created for this case at all?
No, these are considerations that I've had and discussions I've had with colleagues in terms of evaluating these injuries and...
And I don't want you to go into what other people said, but I want you to finish your answer.
Right, no, I did not make physical notes of my considerations.
Your Honor, I'm going into a different category, so I just wanted to alert Your Honor to it.
All right. And it will take more than 10, 15 minutes?
Oh, yes.
Okay. All right, jurors. We'll take the lunch and recess. So we'll see you in about 45 minutes.
Rise to the jury.
Goodbye.
Defense has nothing, Your Honor. Thank you for asking.